frequently asked questions about braided line, or about any line. One of them is actually, when they're putting the line on at home, how should they put the line on? And basically the way it should be is, if you have a spool, you should put the spool down, and you want the spool on the floor, the line to come off counterclockwise, and then through the eyes of maybe your rod and down to your spinning reel. So remember that, if you're using a spinning reel, you want it counterclockwise. And most companies, not all, so you have to check, when you take your line out of a box, the label side, if you put the label side up where you're looking at the label on the floor, that line will most likely come counterclockwise off the spool, and then you can wind it onto your spinning reel. If it doesn't, just take the box or the line spool with the label up and flip it over, so it comes off counterclockwise. But you have to check, because not all companies do that, or sometimes they put the sticker on the wrong side. You want it to come counterclockwise. The other way you can do it is you can have a friend take a pencil and stick it through the spool of the reel. You just want to make sure, here's a spool, that when you're doing on a spinning reel, it comes off the bottom. You don't want to have them hold it this way, have it come off the bottom. So counterclockwise, here's the label, label up. Even on a small spools that you buy for 150 yards, it should come off counterclockwise. And then also, if you're going to do it with a pencil, and this way, off the bottom of the spool. Another frequently asked question is, when they tie the knot, whether it be monofilament. Now I'm going to use the braided line to tie directly to this spool because it's got color and it's thick. This is a 100-pound test of O'Hero, and it's easier for you to see. Here's the reel, this is the arbor. So now we're going to tie an arbor knot around it. And it's real simple. All you're going to do is wrap your line around that reel like this, see? And it's real simple. I don't know how close the camera's going to get to it, but that's how it's going to tie, just like that. And in the same thing, I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see it. I'm going to take this line. I got you on the desk here. Maybe I should stand up. And then you're going to flip it around here. And I do it with braided line. The monofilament, I would do about 3 wraps depending on the test. If I'm using, let's say, 8-pound test mono, I'm doing 5 or 6 wraps. If I'm using 30-pound, I use 3 or 4 wraps. If I'm using 80-pound, I can do 2 wraps. And what I do is just pull it like this, and it forms a little barrel, just like that. Now watch, this is how the arbor knot's going to work. And you'll see it sliding down. And then I'll keep it right then on the bottom. And that would be my monofilament. Like I said, I'm using braided line so you can see it because it's colorful, and this is a 180-pound O'Hero and it's thick. And then I would clip this as close as possible. Got my O'Hero scissors here. And I would clip it all the way down as close as possible. And with mono, you really want to clip. And then I would have my wraps go around and like that. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to see if I can do the knot without the spool, and you can see it. I'm going to do it up high. So it would actually look like this. I put this around the spool. Here's my loop. And I pinch it with my right hand. This is around the spool now, just like that. And then I'm going to take this up and I'm going to wrap it 3 times because I'm using, let's say, 40-pound test. 1, 2, 3. I take the tag in. Now this will be the spool where my fingers are. And I pull this tag in until it forms that little barrel. And that'll slide. Now here's something beauty about the arbor knot. See how it slides down? If I need to make it bigger to take it off the spool, I can pull it back out. It'll slide back out. See how I just made it a big loop? I'm going to make it small. Oops, I got the line in the middle of the spool. I don't want that. I can take it, make it bigger, put it down on the lower part of the spool where I said, like right here on the edge, to get it out of the way, and then I can pull it down tight. And that is your arbor knot. If you want to see some of these knots, if you go to www.theonlinefisherman.com, there's a thing there that says how to, and if you go to how to, there's a knot section, and it has animated knots. So you can see all of these knots, and you can do it in slow motion. It'll take you step by step. That's the arbor knot. The same knot is going to be tied to the conventional reel or the bait caster. So I would take that and I would stick it in here, and you're going to watch me do this again. This is an arbor knot. And knots are very important, especially when you're tying Here I form it up here. Look how easy it is. This is the arbor knot again. I'm going to pinch it in my right hand. Here, I'm going to go in through 1, 2, 3. Now the number of wraps here all depend on the size of the line I'm using. Remember, the thinner the line, the more wraps you have to use. The thicker the line, the less wraps. Sometimes you have to experiment with that. I mean, if you have a 150-pound test monofilament and you wrap it 8 times, it's going to be really tough to try to cinch that knot down. But if you do it 3 or 4, you'll cinch it. And now I'm going to pull it down, and you can see it. It'll slide right down. And there's your knot down there, tight to the spool. And then I'll clip it. So that's your rubber knot. Now look, see, if I make a mistake, see how I can slide the knot back out? See, I make it big again. And I'm back out here, and I can slide it back down. So I can position it anywhere I want on the spool. So if you make a mistake, you can slide it. Now, let's talk about tying the monofilament line to the braided line. So, let's say here's the backing. That's our backing. Our monofilament backing. And now here is our braided line. And we're going to tie a knot. And what we're going to tie is a uni knot. Some people call it a double uni knot. Some people call it a single uni to a single uni. But it's a uni knot. Whatever, you're going to tie the same knot on both ends. So what you're going to do is you're going to overlap your line. The high-vis yellow is our monofilament backing. The blue line is our braid. And what I'm going to do is have them overlap. And give yourself plenty of room so you have enough to tie the knot. I'm going to pinch it with my right hand. And then I'm going to take the monofilament backing and I'm going to swing it around both lines. And I'm going to go through usually 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do it 5 for demonstration purposes. And then I'm going to grab the tag end and I'm going to make a little barrel with the braided line. Now you can see there's a perfect little barrel over here that formed. And you'll see how tight this comes. So I have a barrel on this side. Now I'm going to take the braided line side, that was the monofilament side, and do the same thing. I'm going to do it 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to take the tag end and I'm going to pull it. And there's another barrel. Now I have a little barrel here and a little barrel to my left and to my right. That's a uni knot, that's a uni knot. I call it a double uni. Now, anytime you tie a knot and you have monofilament or fluorocarbon leader or backing, you want to wet it really good. And the reason you're wetting it is so that you don't burn the backing or you don't burn the leader. Because when the knots start to tight and cinch down to each other, they're going to create friction. If you burn the leader or you burn the backing, you weaken it. You weaken it a lot. So saliva it up really good and then let it slide down. Now what happens is you'll have the barrels will slide against each other, barrel to barrel, as you see. They slid. And now watch this. And you can pull it as tight as you want and it'll lock. And I am pulling as hard as I can and I lock that knot down. And now I'll get untangled here. And then you clip it. And I'll take my O'Hero scissors and I clip the knot all the way down. I'm not worried about my knots coming out, and neither should you once you practice tying your knots. There will be no tag ends on this at all. You know, this is from your monofilament backing to your braided line. And there is your knot. So you have a barrel and a barrel. And then you would continue to wind your line onto your reel. Those are frequently asked questions. Now, a lot of people use some other knots. You know, I hear people say they want to use blood knots and stuff like that. A blood knot, in its original sense, when it's tied, you should be using lines of equal diameter. And that's why I don't suggest a blood knot. If it's supposed to be used with lines of equal diameter, and this is a monofilament backing, and it's 30-pound test, and this is 30-pound braid, This has the diameter of 6-pound test. This has the diameter of 30-pound test. That's not an equal diameter. So if you get down to the backing and you have a nice fish on there and it pulls, it's probably going to slide out. So I don't recommend the blood knot. That's one of the only ones I don't recommend. All the rest of the knots you can use. People use different knots. But the uni-to-uni is one of the nicest knots. And if you notice how the uni forms, it slides against equally together. There's no angles, and the reason you're concerned about the angle is if there's an angle of the braided line coming down like a figure-8 knot or a surgeon's knot coming down on your monofilament line, there's a chance it could cut through it. Because like I said, the braided line is very thin, and it'll cut when it's tight right through the leader. Thank you for joining us today on this webinar. If you have any further questions, you can email us at info@ohirofishing.com. I hope you learned something today. Usually there's something in there you can pick up on, and if you send a question in, we can answer it just again at info@ohirofishing.com. That's info@ohirofishing.com. Thank you.